The Shining is one of the most unsettling horror films ever made, a haunted nightmare filled with mysteries the film never fully explains. But more than 4 decades later, this film is still hiding secrets. Did you know deleted footage once showed exactly what happened to Danny inside room 237? Or that the bizarre bear costume scene may hide a disturbing clue about Danny and Jack? Today, we're uncovering 11 hidden truths about The Shining 1980, including deleted scenes, disturbing theories, and Kubrick's own answer to why Jack appears in a 1921 photograph decades before he was born. Number 1. The ending that vanished after 1 weekend. The film ends in the frozen hedge maze outside the Overlook Hotel, where Jack Torrance sits down in the snow and freezes to death. The camera then drifts through the empty hotel and settles on an old photograph dated 1921. Roll credits, but anyone who bought a ticket during the opening weekend in May 1980 got 2 more minutes after that. In the extra scene, Wendy and Danny are recovering in a hospital, and Stuart Ullman, the hotel manager who hired Jack in the first place, comes to visit. He tells Wendy that the hotel grounds and the surrounding area have been thoroughly searched, but nothing strange was found. Then, on his way out, he tosses Danny a yellow tennis ball. It appears to be the same kind of ball that mysteriously rolled toward Danny inside the Overlook and led him toward room 237. That disturbing connection suggests the hotel's influence may have followed Danny to the hospital, or that Ullman knows far more than he admits. Producer Jan Harlan later explained that the scene turns Ullman into something like another ghost element, suggesting that he may not just be a clueless hotel manager, but someone connected to the Overlook's evil influence and helping cover up what really happened there. However, within days of the film's opening, Kubrick ordered projectionists across the country to physically cut those 2 minutes out of their prints, and he ordered Warner Brothers to destroy every copy of the deleted scene. Producer Jan Harlan later confirmed that the outtakes, negatives, and unused footage were all deliberately destroyed so that no one could ever restore or release the deleted ending. Critic Roger Ebert, who caught one of those early screenings, said years later that Kubrick was right to cut it because the hospital scene added one final twist too many, making the ending feel unnecessarily confusing rather than mysterious. So what secret do you think Ullman was hiding from Wendy and Danny? And why did Kubrick ultimately choose to remove this scene? Number 2. The room 237 footage no one will see. Room 237 is the locked door at the heart of the film. Danny is drawn down the hallway toward it, goes inside, and the next time we see him, he is walking toward his mother in a daze with bruises around his neck. Later, Jack goes into the same room and we get a full scene, a beautiful naked woman rising out of the bathtub who turns into a corpse in his arms. But the moment Danny enters the room, sees what is waiting inside, and discovers who attacks him is never shown. According to researchers at the Lost Media Wiki, the sequence of Danny being lured into that room originally ran significantly longer and played out from Danny's own point of view. Inside, Danny would have seen the same rotting woman Jack encounters later, slowly emerging from the bathtub and approaching him while he stood frozen in terror. She then grabbed the 5-year-old boy around the neck and strangled him, directly explaining the bruises Wendy discovers afterward. Audiences would have seen exactly what the hotel did to Danny instead of being left to imagine it. And there is no way left to check because, like everything else cut from The Shining, that footage was destroyed on Kubrick's orders. The most disturbing scene in the movie is the one that no longer exists. Number 3. The bear costume and the Playgirl cover. Near the end of the film, Wendy is running through the hotel searching for Danny, rounds a corner, and looks through an open doorway. Inside, a man in a full animal costume is on a bed with a man in a tuxedo, clearly in the middle of a sexual act. Both of them turn and stare at her. It lasts only a few seconds, and for most viewers, it is the single most baffling image in the movie. On the surface, it plays as one more piece of the hotel's dead past bleeding through the walls. But beginning in 2008, film analyst Rob Ager developed a very different interpretation. He argued that Danny is being sexually abused by his father, and that the film's supernatural events are a way of showing a child's trauma from the inside. His evidence is cumulative rather than singular. First, Danny is associated with bears throughout the film, including a stuffed bear shown beside his toy fire engine in the lobby, and the picture of two bears hanging above his bed at the Overlook. Second, the magazine Jack is reading in the hotel lobby early in the film is a January 1978 issue of Playgirl, and one of the headlines on its cover reads, "Incest: Why Parents Sleep with Their Children." Rob Ager draws particular attention to the doctor's examination scene, where Danny is lying on the teddy bear pillow with his jeans removed and his hands covering his groin, visually connecting him to both the bear imagery and the sexual act shown near the end of the film. Tony, the invisible friend Danny speaks through, can then be interpreted as a separate identity Danny uses to distance himself from trauma he cannot understand or describe directly. Tony supposedly lives in Danny's mouth, hides when questioned, and Danny abruptly refuses to discuss him any further. The theory remains unproven, but Kubrick's decision to change the dog costume from the novel into a bear and remove its original backstory is exactly what makes the interpretation so difficult to dismiss. What is your read on the scene, a memory the hotel is replaying, or something the film is saying about Danny? Number 4. The secret behind number 42. One of the strangest patterns hidden throughout The Shining is the number 42. Danny wears a shirt with a large 42 on it. Wendy and Danny watch the 1971 film Summer of 42 on television. A news report playing in the hotel mentions a $42 million spending bill. Even the digits of room 237 produce 42 when multiplied together. 2 times 3 times 7 equals 42. For decades, viewers have wondered why Kubrick kept returning to the same number. Historian Jeffrey Cox proposed one of the darkest explanations. He argued that The Shining contains a hidden subtext about the Holocaust, and that 42 represents the year 1942. On January 20th, 1942, senior Nazi officials met at the Wannsee Conference to coordinate the implementation of what they called the final solution, the systematic murder of Europe's Jews, and the number was not Jeffrey Cox's only evidence. Jack writes obsessively on a German-made Adler typewriter. Adler means eagle in German, and the eagle was one of the most recognizable symbols used by Nazi Germany. Strangely, shortly before the typewriter receives its own prominent close-up, Jack himself is wearing a shirt bearing another eagle and the words Stovington Eagles. Cox also pointed to the unusually frequent use of yellow throughout the film, including Jack's yellow Volkswagen and the yellow tennis ball that leads Danny toward room 237, which he connected to the yellow badges Nazis forced Jews to wear. None of this proves that Kubrick secretly made The Shining about the Holocaust, and Kubrick never confirmed the theory. But Jeffrey Cox believed the number 42 was never just another mysterious number in the Overlook. So what do you think? Was Kubrick deliberately pointing viewers toward 1942, or is all of this simply a coincidence? Number 5. The Moon Landing Confession Hidden in Room 237. In 2012, a documentary titled Room 237 presented an extraordinary theory. The Shining may have been Kubrick's coded confession that he helped NASA and the United States government stage the televised footage of the Apollo 11 moon landing in 1969. The theory was proposed by filmmaker Jay Weidner, who believed Kubrick secretly planted several clues throughout the movie. First, Danny wears a hand-knitted sweater showing a rocket and the words Apollo 11 USA. Even more strangely, Danny plays on a hexagonal carpet pattern that supposedly resembles Launchpad 39A, the site from which Apollo 11 was launched. Second, when Jack enters the hotel pantry, the shelves contain cans of Tang, the powdered orange drink that became strongly associated with NASA's space program. But the most important clue is the room number itself. Jay Weidner claimed that Kubrick changed room 217 from Stephen King's novel to room 237 because the moon was commonly said to be approximately 237,000 miles from Earth. None of this proves that Kubrick had anything to do with the moon landing, but the clues fit together just well enough to keep the theory alive. So what do you think? Did Kubrick deliberately plant these details to confuse conspiracy theorists, or are viewers simply very good at finding patterns that were never intended? Number 6. Kubrick's own answer about the photograph. The last shot of The Shining is a slow push down a corridor toward a wall of framed black and white photographs, ending on one captioned, "Overlook Hotel, July 4th Ball, 1921. Jack Torrance is standing front and center in a tuxedo, grinning straight at the camera decades before he was born. For 45 years, many film analysts and critics have interpreted this as the hotel absorbing Jack's soul after his death and adding him to its collection. But in a 1980 interview with French film critic Michel Simond, Kubrick finally gave his own answer. He said the ballroom photograph suggests the reincarnation of Jack. Jack is the newest version of someone who served the Overlook in a previous life, which is precisely why the ghostly butler Delbert Grady tells him in the bathroom that he has always been the caretaker. It may also explain why the film gives us two Gradys, Delbert Grady, the ghost Jack meets, and Charles Grady, the former caretaker mentioned during the job interview who murdered his family. This means that every caretaker at the Overlook may be a reincarnation of a previous caretaker, trapped in the same role and repeating the same violence. If this is true, the Overlook does not choose its caretakers randomly. It deliberately brings back people whose souls already belong to the hotel, then pushes them to repeat the same deadly cycle. And there is one more twist to that 1921 photograph. Kubrick did not stage the entire scene with hundreds of extras. He found a genuine photograph from 1921 in a picture library and replaced the face of the man in the center with Jack Nicholson's. The photograph may therefore reveal that Jack belonged to the Overlook long before he ever arrived there. Number 7. The burial ground Kubrick added himself. In the job interview at the start of the film, Ullman mentions almost casually that the Overlook was built on an Indian burial ground, and that the builders had to fight off a few Indian attacks while they worked. It is one line, and most viewers file it away as atmosphere. In 1987, Bill Blackmore, a correspondent for ABC News, published an essay arguing that this line is a key and that the whole film is an allegory for the destruction of Native Americans. What makes his case worth hearing is that nearly everything he points to was put there by Kubrick and does not exist in King's novel. The hotel is decorated wall to wall with Apache and Navajo patterns. The pantry shelves are lined with Kilmet baking powder, whose logo depicts a Native American man in a headdress. The elevator pours out a flood of blood that Blakemore interprets as the blood of Native Americans rising from the burial ground beneath the hotel. Halloran's body ends up lying on a rug with a native design, and here is the most striking clue of all. The final photograph places Jack at the Overlook's July 4th ball in 1921. Blakemore sees the date as deliberate irony. The film ends on the holiday celebrating the birth of America, after repeatedly reminding us of the native people who were displaced and killed as the country expanded. Kubrick never confirmed any of it, so this remains a critic's interpretation rather than a filmmaker's statement. Do you think that is what the film is about underneath, or is it one strong idea stretched over a haunted house? Number 8. The ending Stephen King never forgave. In Kubrick's film, The Overlook Hotel wins. Jack chases his family with an axe, murders Halloran seconds after the man walks through the door, and dies alone in the snow, while the hotel is still standing when the credits roll. Stephen King's 1977 novel, the book the film is based on, ends almost the opposite way. In the book, Jack briefly breaks free from the hotel's control and becomes himself again, long enough to tell Danny that he loves him and let the boy escape. The hotel's ancient boiler, an old heating system that Jack was responsible for checking throughout the winter, becomes dangerously overheated because he has neglected it. It finally explodes and burns the Overlook to the ground with Jack inside it. However, Kubrick removed the Overlook destruction and Jack's final redemption. Stephen King has been complaining about these changes ever since. His problem is not simply that Kubrick changed the story. King believed the film weakened Jack's tragedy by making him seem unstable from the beginning. In the novel, the audience watches a loving father slowly lose himself and briefly fight back. In the film, Jack already seems dangerous and simply becomes more dangerous. That is why King described his novel as warm and Kubrick's film as cold. The book still finds love and humanity inside Jack, while the film allows the hotel to consume him completely. Number 9. The tarot card hidden in Jack's pose. The straightforward reading of The Shining is that a weak man is left alone with his family and his own thoughts until he gradually loses his grip on reality. But some viewers believe the film is doing something else entirely, and that Jack is already dead when the movie starts. In this version, the Overlook is hell, or purgatory, and the winter we are watching is not Jack's first time there. It is a punishment he has already endured and is doomed to repeat forever. The evidence is all the stuff that never quite adds up. The hotel's geography is physically impossible. Ullman's office has a window showing the outside, even though the office is located deep inside the hotel, with other rooms and corridors occupying the space where the outside should be. Elsewhere, doors appear in walls that do not have enough space behind them to contain another room. Even the hotel's enormous corridors and ballrooms could never fit inside the much smaller building shown from the outside. Jan Harlan, the film's executive producer, confirmed that these spatial contradictions were intentional. Under this theory, Jack appearing in a photograph from 1921 suggests that the hotel exists outside normal time and that Jack has already belonged to it for decades. He signs a contract with the hotel's manager in the first 5 minutes, which can be read as a deal with the devil. And in that final photograph, his arms are held in a very particular position, one raised and one lowered, which some viewers compare to the pose of the devil card in a tarot deck. Under this interpretation, Wendy and Danny may be instruments the hotel uses to force Jack to relive his violence and failure over and over again. So which Jack were you watching? A man going mad or a man serving an eternal sentence? Number 10. The yellow chalk outline Kubrick couldn't film. In the finished film, only 2 people die. Jack freezes in the maze, and Dick Halloran, the hotel's head cook, takes an axe in the chest minutes after arriving to help. Wendy and Danny escape and survive. But while the script was still being written, Kubrick and his co-writer, novelist Diane Johnson, sat down and discussed who else might die instead. Johnson later said that Kubrick was most fascinated by the relationship between Jack and Danny. Kubrick was especially interested in showing the story through Danny's eyes, as a small child who is terrified of his own father. So one version they discussed ended with Jack killing Danny, with a final shot showing a small yellow chalk outline on the floor, like the kind police draw around a dead body. However, Kubrick eventually rejected the idea because he felt audiences would find the death of a young child far too disturbing. A second version had Wendy killing Jack in self-defense, allowing her to defeat him herself instead of simply escaping from him. Although Kubrick could not bring himself to kill Danny, he still believed that a horror movie needed at least one death, so every version of the ending had to leave someone dead. In the end, he chose the version that spared Wendy and Danny, but still demanded a fatal price from Jack and Halloran. Number 11. The face hidden in the poster was never explained. The original American poster for The Shining is almost impossible to forget. A bright yellow background, the title printed in enormous black letters, and a distorted face staring through the word. Most viewers naturally assume it is Jack Nicholson, but the face does not belong to Jack, Danny, or anyone else who appears in the film. The poster was created by legendary designer Saul Bass, and surviving correspondence shows that Stanley Kubrick rejected several of his earlier concepts, including images of the hedge maze, the Overlook Hotel, and a bloody hand. Kubrick kept demanding something that conveyed more terror, eventually approving the strange doll-like face, but neither he nor Bass ever publicly explained whose face it was supposed to represent. One theory is that it represents Danny, the child whose supernatural ability gives the film its title. The face looks unusually young, and placing it inside the lettering could symbolize Danny trapped inside the terrifying visions produced by The Shining. An even darker variation suggests that it is Tony, the mysterious personality, who lives inside Danny and warns him about the hotel. But there is no official answer, and the image itself never appears anywhere in the movie. So whose faces have audiences been staring at for more than 40 years? Danny, Tony, or something that was never meant to be human at all? The frightening thing about The Shining is that its ghosts may be the least disturbing thing hiding inside it. Depending on which clues you believe, the film can become a story about abuse, history, reincarnation, or an endless cycle of violence. Which interpretation comes closest to what you think Kubrick was really trying to say? Share your theory below, and subscribe if you want to keep digging into the darker secrets behind classic films.